Hey there, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Lion Collectibles. It's Friday, and you know what time that is. It's time to pick the fights and show you some cards for tomorrow's UFC 213 event, Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen. I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Well, actually, I'm not. It's your boy, Thick Nick, with his picks. Let me cover up this crazy hair. Let's get into the picks. I got some good ones for you today. Hopefully we'll pick some winners. We are down 6 and 7 on the total record, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful this time. But let's go ahead and dive into the fight card. Okay, first fight of the night is Philip Hawes versus Roman Dolidze. Philip Hawes is the minus 175 favorite. Dolidze is a plus 145 underdog. Phil Hawes is someone that's brought a lot of hype in his UFC career. He was a JC national champion and a D1 wrestler at Iowa State. The guy's super athletic, looks to land big bombs. He's a wrestler turned striker. He's 4-1 in his 5 UFC fights. He's going up against Dolidze. He's a Georgian, and he's also a 4-1, has a 4-1 record in the UFC himself. He's a striker as well. He's coming off a real big win over another prospect, Kyle Dawkins, in his last fight. It was kind of back and forth, and he landed a huge knee to set up a finishing sequence, which was pretty cool to watch. Prediction for the fight, I got to ride with my boy and fellow wrestler Hawes. I just think the guy's strength is ridiculous, and his striking is getting better and better. I think he kind of has multiple ways to win here, right? As long as he doesn't get gassed out, which we kind of have seen happen a little bit, or doesn't get in too crazy of a firefight and get a big punch or a big knee or something like that landed from Dolidze, I think he should be able to pick his shots. And then if he's getting tired or he wants to kind of take a little bit of a breather or pace, I think he can use easily his wrestling and his clinch work to kind of close the distance. So I would ride on Hawes on this one. I do have a card of his, nothing super crazy, but it is his 2022 Panini Select base card. It's a rookie, and it is a premier level, so that's why it's got this kind of little different of a look. I think it's a pretty cool action shot of him, and I think he gets the win this weekend. All right, on the next card, or the first fight of the main card, we have Dustin Jacoby versus Khalil Roundtree. This is a real striker's delight. Dustin Jacoby is a former kickboxer, K1 kickboxer. Had kind of a rough stint in the first UFC run, but since coming back has been undefeated. He's looked great. Big KO win over Da Un Jung, who a lot of people thought was going to be a big contender in the division. Looked great in the striking, caught him and finished him. So he's looked really, really great. Khalil Roundtree is a super fun and exciting guy to watch. The guy is a vicious striker, heavy punches, heavy kicks. He made his way into the UFC on Dana White's Contender Series. If you've never seen it, I recommend you go check it out. He knocks the guy down and delivers a brutal kick to this guy's midsection when he's face down. Totally legal, not something you see a lot, and just kind of crazy violence there from him. I'm going to ride with Dustin Jacoby in this situation. I just think he's got a lot going for him, a lot of hype behind him, and feeling probably really, really good on the back of that DeJune win. That's not to say that he's not going to be in dangerous territory the whole fight, because Khalil Roundtree can do that to anybody. So this is a tight one. I'm not really sure. It was kind of tough to pick. But I'm gonna ride with Dustin Jacoby. I just think he's got a little bit more hype behind him. Couple cards for Dustin Jacoby, 2 base cards, but they are his Select and his Panini Prism cards, which are kind of cool. They're both rookies as well. So this is the base UFC Select card. It's a premier level as well. Little base blue, kind of cool looking. And then this is the Prism. Also, again, another base one. But yeah, hopefully, obviously these aren't anything too special, but always looking to hold on to rookies and maybe get them graded at some point down the line. And yeah, let's hope he can pull out a win this weekend. Next 2 fights, I'm going to kind of lump together just because I am not making an official pick on them. Don't feel super confident either way. And again, trying to protect that record. So next fights on the card, you got Tresean Gore, who is coming out. He took second on the Ultimate Fighter. And then you got a guy named Josh Freund. Both of these guys, I really haven't seen Josh Freund fight, to be completely honest with you. I think he's got 1 fight in the UFC. Tresean Gore, I've watched him fight a few times. I think he hasn't really impressed as much as they thought he was. He's a heavy striker. He was really focused on the show. They focused a lot on him, but he's kind of underwhelmed in his UFC tenure. Last fight he was a favorite and ended up losing to a guy named Cody Brundage. Again, the Josh Freund guy, I just don't know much about him. Tresean Gore is the underdog. I did see a little emotional video from him this weekend, which made me want to lean towards him. But again, I could see him underperforming again as well. If he's going to win, I think he's probably going to win via strikes. He's a really heavy striker. But that's kind of where I would lean. Not an official pick. Then we go to a heavyweight fight next. It's Waldo Cortez Acosta versus a gentleman named Jared Vandervera. Jared Vandervera, I thought was maybe going to have some potential in the UFC, but he's like 1-4 in the UFC. He's got a lot of losses. He's underwhelmed big time. Another guy that I think, probably on his way out of the UFC if he doesn't get a win here. Waldo Acosta is coming off of a big win on the Dana White Contender Series. He's a heavy favorite, like a -202 favorite. So again, I would probably lean there just because Jared Vandervera has not shown me that he's got what it takes to be in the UFC. But I'm going to stay away from that one. Not another pick for ours. In the co-main event of the night, it's a fight that I'm really excited for. You got Tim the Dirty Bird Means going up against Max the Pain Griffin. Max Griffin is a guy from up north over my way. He used to fight in a little thing called West Coast Fighting Championships. I've actually seen a lot of his fights live, I think 3 or 4. Tim Means, a guy that I've just always loved the way he fights. He's a gritty striker, really cool inside the pocket boxing. He's kind of tall, kind of lanky. He doesn't necessarily look like the most imposing dude, but I love his grittiness. I love his toughness. Both of these guys have been in the UFC for a long time. I believe since like 2016 is when they both, around the same time that they got started. Means is a little bit older than Max Griffin, but I think they're both kind of in similar points of their career. They're trying to establish themselves as names in the division. Tim Means has had ups and downs. He's fought in good fights and lost a few fights. Max Griffin was on a nice little 2 or 3 fight win streak and recently lost to Neil Magny, who's a perennial contender in the welterweight division. I just think this fight makes for a lot of fun. My pick, I'm riding with the Dirty Bird. He's actually a +145 underdog. I love his striking. I don't know what happened. I saw him knock out a guy I believe named John Howard a few years ago, and ever since then I've just been a big fan. I love the way he fights. He's tough. He always brings it, win or lose. So I'm riding with the Dirty Bird. Love that nickname. It was a rough week picking up cards, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if everybody was just negotiating hard last week, but he's one of the only cards I was able to pick up off of eBay. I got this base set Don Russ Red Hollow Laser out of 75, so it's a lower numbered card. Again, how many more years Tim has in the division, not quite sure. But while he's in, I will always be rooting for the Dirty Bird. So let's go Dirty Bird. Let's get a win this weekend. And last but not least, we have the main event. Awesome main event for a fight night. I love it when the UFC does this. You got Arnold Almighty Allen versus Calvin Kattar, the Boston finisher. I love that nickname. Sounds like a serial killer or something. Calvin Kattar comes out of the Ray Longo fight camp. Super great fight camp. They got Aljamain Sterling. Chris Weidman was a former champion. And Calvin Kattar is as tough as it comes, man. The guy's had a great early career in the UFC. He's gone, alternated wins back and forth over his last 3. He had an absolute battle with Max Holloway, where unfortunately he really got the snot kicked out of him. But that's against Max Holloway, one of the greatest featherweights of all time, in my opinion. And again, a guy that if you're going to lose in a striking battle too, he's probably one of them. He did pick up a really, really good win against Giga Chikadze out of Georgia, a Georgian. That fight he kind of derailed the hype train of Chikadze, so that looked really good. And then he fought a close back and forth war with contender Josh Emmett from Alpha Male. So Calvin Kattar, he's mainly a boxer. His striking is super crisp, and he's a pressure fighter. He likes to put pressure and close the distance on guys and come forward. Arnold Allen on the other side, undefeated in the UFC. He's 18-1 overall. This guy has just been on a steady upward trajectory since entering the UFC. He's mainly a grappler, at least that was what he was early in his UFC tenure. But then he's coming off a big win over Dan Hooker, who was a contender at 145 or 155 and dropped down to 145. Hurt him early with punches and was able to finish him. He's also got a huge win over Sadiq Youssef, who's another big contender in the division. And so this is a big step up for Arnold. A lot of people are wondering, can he compete at the highest level? And it's definitely probably one of his tougher tests to date, since Kattar is so tough and not going to be someone that goes away early. My prediction for the fight, I'm riding with Allen. I've been watching him for a few years and thought he was going to be a prospect. I've been a big fan of him for quite some time. I think, hopefully he's going to be able to have the superior cardio and strength advantage, especially in grappling. I think Kattar's going to want to pressure him and get him in a lot of spots where he feels uncomfortable and where Kattar should have the advantage in striking. But if Arnold Allen can hurt him, can clinch with him, take him down and win rounds, I think he's probably going to have superior conditioning, I think. But that's where I'm going to lay my bet on. I think Allen is the next real deal and someone who's going to challenge for the title someday. I do have a card of Arnold Allen. It is a green parallel prism card. It's not numbered or anything super special. I tried to get an out of 50 select card, but again, the seller was just not budging on price with me. So this is all I got of him. I think it's a pretty cool card. It's one of these horizontal cards, a green parallel prism. So I'm going to be rooting for Arnold Allen. I think he's going to take it and put himself right into title contention. Last but not least, I wanted to do an honorable mention. Not a super important fight for the division, but lower on the card. I got to call him out because he's one of the all-time greats. Andre the Pitbull Arlovski is fighting Rogerio de Lima in the bottom. Andre Arlovski, if you've been watching UFC for any amount of time, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, he's a household name. He's someone that's near and dear to our hearts. I can't think of a cooler picture of him when he was younger with long flowing hair and he used to come out with these vampire teeth. He was a former heavyweight champion, won the belt from Tim Sylvia. I was there live when he actually hurt Tim Sylvia really bad in their rematch. Tim Sylvia somehow worked his way to the feet and knocked out Andre Arlovski, which was kind of a crazy thing to see live. I was young. I was 17 or 18, so it's a great memory of mine, even though my fighter I was looking for lost. Andre's had a really, really long career and has really revived his career in the UFC. He's played spoiler over the last few years to young up and coming fighters, definitely a gatekeeper. In De Lima, I think he's fighting a dangerous guy. De Lima, again, back and forth guy, not necessarily a world beater, but has a lot of power. But the way that Arlovski has really had his longevity is just through great boxing, not taking as much damage, but he has shown that if he does get hit, he can get finished. So, I'm going to be crossing my fingers. He's a fan favorite, someone that's near and dear to my heart. I do have a card of him as well, so I had to make sure I got that on here for you. This is a National Pride UFC Prism autograph. It's actually the first autograph that I pulled since kind of getting into the fight to the cards. Not numbered or anything like that, but instantly I had to send it to my buddy Mike Rico, the California Barking Spider. It's one of his favorite fighters. So I just thought it was a really cool, and it's a hard pick. I wouldn't put any money on it. I'd be really careful just because it could end quickly. But I will be pulling for the Pitbull, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. So with that all being said, here are the official picks. I'm picking 4 fights, trying to make sure that I try to keep my record at least somewhat intact. So the 4 fights that we're going to pick: Philip Hawes, -175. Again, I think he gets it done over Dolce, as long as he can be careful there. Tim Means, he's actually an underdog, +155. I love the Dirty Bird. I think his striking should be better than Max Griffin's, as long as he can not get controlled in any takedowns. I think he'll pick up the win. We're going to ride with Dustin Jacoby. He's a -185 favorite over Khalil Roundtree. I think he'll have just a little bit more tight, crisp striking, and hopefully he can kind of get it done in the striking department against the vicious Roundtree. And then in the main event, we're going to roll it out with, we're going to follow Arnold Allen, minus 125. It's going to be close, but again, I think we have a contender on our hands. Little fun fact, if you were to put a $25 bet on that parlay, it would net you $252. So I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be $252 richer after this weekend. It's a holiday weekend. I hope everybody has fun and a happy Halloween. Now I got to go get some candy for these kids.